What's up everybody, Matt Maran here for another weekly update. So there's lots of news to go over this week, and the first story here is that Kia has revealed the refreshed Stinger, and we saw that 2 weeks ago, but now we have some actual mechanical specifications on it, and it's going to be getting a little bit faster, especially for the base version of the Stinger. So the main thing here is the biggest change is the 2.5 liter turbocharged 4-cylinder that's going to be likely replacing the 2.0, but they do say that this is only for the North American markets, and then they strangely said it's for Korea, Mexico, and the United States. They didn't mention Canada, but then in another part of the press release they said North American markets. But then they also mentioned Korea, so I'm not exactly sure who's getting it, but at least it sounds like the United States is a pretty safe bet for this engine. So anyway, it's going to be the same engine you're going to see in some of the other stuff like the N-Line version of the Sonata and in the Kia K5 GT and stuff. So it's going to be doing 300 horsepower and 311 pound-feet of torque. So that means you're going to be getting about 50 more horsepower and about 50 more pound-feet of torque over that old 2-liter turbo 4-cylinder, which I was already really impressed with in the base Stinger. I thought it was a really cool WRX alternative. And now with this, it's almost like an STI alternative with 300 horsepower. There isn't any official pricing yet for these. It's a little early for that still. But anyway, the other change is that the Stinger GT will keep its 3.3-liter twin-turbo V6. It's not going to the 3.5-liter engine from the Genesis models, it sounds like. Sticking with a 3.3, but it does get 3 more horsepower thanks to a new active exhaust, which opens up in sport mode to make it louder. I'm very excited to try that out. Hopefully that would be very, very cool. Great improvement there. And so otherwise, both models are still going to be available with either rear-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. So another, for those of you that are upset that the Kia K5, you can't get all-wheel drive with the GT version, here you go. Just buy yourself a Stinger, get the same engine, and you get the all-wheel drive, plus a more usable hatch. So, another little reason to go for a Stinger here. I still love the Stinger. Hoping that people can buy as many of them as they can to keep those things alive. Other additions here. The Highway Driving Assist is going to be available now, and so that's something they're rolling out on all Kias and Hyundais and stuff, so that makes sense. Also, the blind spot monitor, the little camera view you get in the digital gauge cluster, that's going to be coming to the Stinger as well. And so that's a cool thing. And so they're saying that there's going to be a digital cluster, but it's not shown in the pictures. The only interior pictures we've seen so far just show the normal analog dials as well as a digital portion in the middle like you have on current Stingers. So we'll have to wait and see, but it does sound like the base cluster is gone in the updated Stinger, meaning the base versions where you had a tiny little screen in the middle, that's gone. So the smallest screen you're going to get is a larger, I believe they said it's like a 6-inch screen or something there in the middle now instead for the gauges. But then there's also going to be, I think they said it's only like a 7-inch digital driver display, digital gauges. So we'll have to wait and see because, again, we don't have any pictures for any of this stuff. I wish they would reveal pictures whenever they start talking about stuff in press releases. Same gripe I had with Mazda last week. But anyway, the one thing we do see is the 10.25-inch widescreen touchscreen that I already talked about 2 weeks ago when this debuted. But we have some more info on that. So they're saying that that's actually going to have wireless CarPlay and Android Auto, which is surprising because that same screen in the K5 I just reviewed does not have wireless functionality. Only the base 8-inch screen does. But according to the press release here, the 10-inch screen will have the wireless functionality. And then the new base screen you're going to get in a Stinger now is going to be a narrow bezel 8-inch screen instead of the 7-inch touchscreen you used to have. So I'm thinking maybe like the old 8-inch screen is now going to be the base screen, which is good that there's an upgrade even for those base models. So that's nice. And I think that one won't have the wireless feature. Again, we'll have to wait until we get actual US-specific stuff because this is still a global press release. So a little bit of info that's missing, but at least we do have some more info than we had before. They do say it's going to be on sale in Korea in the 3rd quarter of this year and elsewhere in the world later this year. So we'll have to wait for more details for our market then. Another thing that's a little bit unofficial, but fairly confirmed, is that Cars Direct is reporting that they obtained an early order guide that shows that the 2.5 turbo version of the CX-30 is coming for the 2021 model year, just like how it did in the Mazda 3. That was just announced, a few weeks ago. And so that's interesting, though, because we've already gotten some info on the 2021 CX-30, I think. There wasn't any mention of that yet, but Mazda is doing a new rollout of all their 2021 models. We just got info on the CX-9 last week. I have some info on the CX-5 here coming in a minute. And so anyway, CX-30, if it does actually get that motor, which is, it's a leaked dealer guide, so it seems like a pretty sure bet at this point. If it does get that, though, it's going to mean 250 horsepower and 320 pound-feet of torque in a subcompact crossover, which will make it the fastest subcompact crossover, in addition to being the nicest riding, arguably best-looking small subcompact crossover as well. That would be very cool, because in a vehicle that's that small, there's no reason to not include it. Since it fits in the Mazda 3, it should fit in the CX-30 anyway. And would help them better compete with those premium brands that do offer a little bit more punch. But as far as mainstream subcompact crossovers go, none of them have anything that's this powerful. So that's very cool. That'll be awesome, if they do in fact do that. It'll most likely come with the all-wheel drive and the 6-speed auto. That's what the dealer guide suggests here. And the order guide even suggests pricing for it. They say it's going to be starting around $31,000 for the Turbo CX-30, going up to about $35,000 for a new Premium Plus trim that's going to be available for the CX-30. And while that is going to be kind of high, it still is, again, the most powerful subcompact crossover, and still isn't too bad considering there's a lot of other competitors that offer you a whole lot less for the same money. So that's kind of interesting. And previously, it used to be a little bit cheaper at $31,000 than the CX-5 Turbo. That actually has changed as of this week. I'll get to that in a second. But anyway, as far as the CX-30, Cars Direct's claiming this turbo version is going to be coming, they're going to start production in November. So you should see them start to show up at dealerships towards the end of this year. Maybe right at the end of this year, Christmas time or something. There'll be Turbo CX-30 supposedly, which sounds awesome. So cool to hear that. For that official Mazda news, though, about the CX-5, they revealed some updates for the 2021 model year, and the main improvement is going to be that it's going to get the same 10.25-inch widescreen display that they just debuted last week on the CX-9. So it's basically using the same software as you get in the Mazda 3 and the Mazda CX-30, but instead of it having the odd shape that those screens have, it's just going to be a normal rectangular screen. And so that's a great improvement, and I actually last week suggested most likely this will end up on the CX-5, and here we are 1 week later, and it is on the CX-5. The screen is going to be standard, by the way, on all trims, so this isn't some fancy upgraded display. This comes on all of them, which is cool. And CarPlay, Apple CarPlay and Android Auto is finally standard equipment as well. Mazda's given up the fight of trying to make you buy a higher trim level to get wireless smartphone integration, so that's nice. But it does mean that the CX-5 loses its touchscreen while parked capability that the old system had in Mazda's, and so this one you have to use the controller wheel at all times now. But I think most Mazda buyers seem to just end up using the controller anyway, since you have to use that when you're driving and stuff. Also for the CX-5, there's going to be a new turbo badge, just like on the Mazda 3s that are coming with it, to denote that more powerful engine on the back. Despite the improvements, though, the price only goes up by $80 for the base trim. And if you want to find a cheaper way to get into the turbo in the CX-5, there now is a cheaper option. So I talked about the Carbon Edition last week whenever I was covering the CX-9. That Carbon Edition basically gives you either polymetal gray or black exterior with a red interior. If you're willing to go for that color combo, that Carbon Edition, you can get in a turbo version, and that's going to be about $4,500 less than the Grand Touring Reserve trim, which is usually the lowest turbo trim for the CX-5. And so that means the new lowest turbo model for the CX-5 is going to be starting at $31,760. And at that price, it does make it a lot harder to justify than the CX-30. Now, the CX-30 will probably have a little bit of a nicer interior than the Carbon Edition, which seems a little more stripped down. But, yeah, seems like the CX-5 might be, a little bit of a better value whenever you're getting up into these higher pricing, crossovers. But anyway, these new CX-5s are going to be arriving in September, so cool to see that. Hyundai has teased a refresh here for the Kona as well as the Kona N line. Both will be getting a wider stance, they say, and a shark-inspired nose for a sleeker look along with new daytime running lights and a new front skid plate. And so you can see, a pretty good idea of what it's going to look like there from those teaser images. We don't have any mechanical details, especially for the N-line version. It could go a couple of different ways. The N-line could just be the new branding for the turbo versions of the Kona. But it could also get the same bump in horsepower like you get on the N-line version of the Elantra they just revealed. That runs the same engine as the Kona Turbo, but in the Elantra N-line, it has the usual 201 horsepower and 195 pound-feet of torque. It's 175 horsepower right now in the Kona. So that could be a nice little bump of, about 26 horsepower there. That could be what they do. We do know that there has been a full-blown N version of the Kona with way more aggressive brakes and stuff, spied lapping the Nürburgring and stuff. That should still be coming. I'm guessing that's coming to the States, but that is not this, and they haven't even started teasing that, so I guess that might still be a ways off. I don't know. But we'll have the N-line version here at least, and hopefully we'll get a little more info on that soon. And speaking of full-blown N versions, I can't show the pictures here, but there was spied in Europe, an Elantra N that was spied running around. So I will link the pictures in the description below if you want to check it out. But it just basically proves there will be an N version of the Elantra, a full-blown N version that should have the Veloster N motor and all that kind of stuff. And has basically the same exhaust tips as the Veloster N, has a nice little spoiler on the back and stuff, and should be a good combo and a nice new competitor for those who don't need all-wheel drive, looking for something with WRX type power. That'll be very cool. So anyway, Hyundai has said there's going to be more info on the Konas to be revealed in the coming weeks. So cool to see that. And Porsche this week has revealed the 2021 Panamera that gets a refresh here with some tweak styling in the front and in the back, along with more powerful engines across the board, except for one exception. So the biggest upgrade here is the 4-liter twin-turbo V8 has been worked over so that it now does 620 horsepower and 604 pound-feet of torque in this new Turbo S model, which actually replaces the regular Panamera Turbo for some reason. I guess they're getting rid of the turbo version. I don't know why, but anyway, that's 70 more horsepower and 37 more pound-feet of torque than the old Turbo, but it's still a good bit less than the existing Turbo SE Hybrid, which strangely they also didn't talk about in this press release. So the non-hybrid Turbo S will be faster though as far as 0 to 60 times. It runs it in 2.9 seconds instead of the 3.2 seconds for the hybrid version. Speaking of hybrids though, there is a new 4SE Hybrid which does 552 horsepower and a 0 to 60 in 3.5 seconds thanks to an electric motor combined with the 2.9 liter twin turbo V6. And so Porsche has said that there's also going to be improved battery capacity for the plug-in hybrids. It's grown by about 27% for the capacity, and there's also efficiency improvements and stuff. But they didn't provide any info beyond that, so I guess there's more info to come for the Panameras that have the hybrid setup there. Then the base Panamera gets rid of its 3-liter turbocharged V6 engine that they're phasing out of all the Porsches and Audis and stuff. And that's getting replaced with the newer 2.9-liter twin-turbo V6 that does lose about 5 horsepower in the process with a switch over from the old motor to the new one. So now the base Panamera does 325 horsepower. Definitely not a big deal there. But anyway, they're all going to be arriving next spring, so cool to see that. BMW has officially shown off the M3 Wagon, or what they're calling, I believe, the M3 Touring. And so they showed it on their Instagram page here, and while it's still in camo, it's easy to see what it looks like, basically. And so it looks pretty good. We're going to have a full reveal coming pretty soon, I'm guessing, with how much they're teasing this. It could even come at the same time as the regular M3 and M4 full reveal, because again, we still haven't seen those without the camo wrap. So hopefully we'll see that relatively soon, since we basically know what it's going to look like already. I don't know, why they continue to hide it. But remember, don't expect that wagon version of the M3. Like I talked about last week when they revealed the teaser for it, to actually crash test it and certify it and all that kind of stuff. Since we don't get a regular wagon body style of the 3 Series anymore here, trying to legalize this very niche M3 version would be very expensive, and I would be shocked if they brought it to the States. It'd be a great surprise, but I certainly wouldn't bank on it. But anyway, cool to see them making that, even if it is just for Europe. Another car that's been officially shown in camouflage here was the next generation Mercedes-AMG SL Roadster. So it looks a little bigger than the AMG GT, but otherwise, it's got the pretty standard Mercedes styling, it seems. They all seem to have a fairly, predictable copy and paste type of mentality to their styling here. And so Mercedes, all they've said so far is the next generation of the legendary SL Roadster is returning to its roots, which trace back to the iconic 300 SL competition race car of 1952. So this likely means it's going to be more of a sports car and less of a cruiser like it used to be. But then I don't know where that leaves the AMG GT, because that is the luxurious sports car, roadster two-door from Mercedes. And also this SL is going to be badged as a Mercedes-AMG. So the previous SL was a Mercedes-Benz, and so the AMG means that there won't be a soft version of this SL most likely. And so that's, again, just, it seems like there's more overlap with Mercedes. Like, you have two cars that do almost an identical thing, and they're niche cars at that. I mean, I can kind of see splitting segments when you're talking about SUVs that sell a ton, but like, why do you have two almost identically sized roadsters? I mean, I don't know how the accountants at Mercedes even approved this, unless the AMG GT is going to get killed off, which I guess is totally reasonable to expect, just because this is so similar. I just don't know. It's kind of perplexing to me. But since they're starting to tease it and it looks pretty production ready with the lights and everything, it shouldn't be more than a year or so until this is fully revealed, even though they just said the whole reason why they revealed these pictures is to announce that they've begun road testing. So that does take, a while, but otherwise it seems pretty production ready. So, I'm guessing it's not going to be a super long wait, but we'll have to wait and see. If you do want a convertible cruiser and you have Rolls-Royce type of money to spend, they will still gladly sell you a nice, comfortable convertible cruiser. They reveal the Dawn Silver Bullet, and Bullet is spelled the traditional way, not the movie car way from Mustangs. So anyway, this one they're only making 50 of, and it's essentially a regular Dawn with the back seats removed and a racier aero cowling placed over top of that area. When you buy one of these, you're not just buying the car, but you're also kind of buying into a club of sorts, because Rolls-Royce says that they'll be organizing road trips for the buyers of these 50 vehicles, because they want them to actually get out and drive these vehicles and not just put them in their collection and let them collect dust. But as much as Rolls-Royce tries, it's pretty certain that a vehicle they're only making 50 of will all just sit and very rarely get driven, sadly. So no pricing yet for those, but that's one of those cars, if you need to know the pricing, you probably shouldn't be buying it. So interesting to see that. And getting back to camouflage cars very quickly, we have some spy shots this week of what I think is the Mitsubishi Outlander or Outlander Sport, thanks to YouTuber That Washer Nerd, who sent this video in, and I will link a higher res version of the video above if you want to go check it out on his channel. It's kind of interesting, because this is actually filmed pretty close to my area here in Pittsburgh, and it looks like it's going to be, I'll keep an eye out for it, maybe I'll see it driving around here at some point, but it looks like it's definitely taking a lot of inspiration from the Engelberg Tourer concept they showed, I think at the Tokyo Motor Show last fall. And so you're going to have, kind of a similar look to what you see in a lot of other crossovers these days, with the little daytime running lights up top there, and then you have the bigger headlights lower down. And, it looks pretty good. You can even tell through the camo. It's going to be a very sharp-looking crossover. The reason why I'm not sure if it's an Outlander or an Outlander Sport is because the back end looks a little bit short for even a compact SUV. It could end up being that that's the regular Outlander, but especially in the past, the Outlanders had a third row. I don't know if you could fit a third row in that cargo area with how short it looks. So that's why I'm thinking this could be a nice step up for the Outlander Sport, or this could just be the Outlander version. We'll have to wait and see. But huge thanks to That Washer Nerd for sending in those that video, and it's I'll keep an eye out for it. Like I said, maybe I'll spot it as well, since it's been supposedly driving around my area and I didn't even know it. That's awesome. Also, getting back to some teasers here, Jeep has revealed a couple more teaser images for the Grand Wagoneer. So one is a silhouette of the front end with the message of the return of a vehicle that defined a generation of adventure, coming 2021. And then the other teaser image here is a little bit more revealing. It shows a very metallic grille with bold block lettering across the front end of the hood there. And it suggests it's going to have a very retro look. There's like the old Wagoneer kind of had that very blocky very metallic bumper and grille area. This is going to be pretty interesting because that's a lot of bling on the front end for any kind of vehicle. Even Bentley, I think, has less chrome up front than this does. So that's going to be interesting once we see the full thing. Even the block lettering across the hood there, that's very retro, and I'm kind of excited about that. They also showed off more metal on the inside. There's going to be a controller wheel here for something. It has very nice knurling on it there and looks very promising too. And again, this is most likely going to be positioned as like an Escalade and Navigator competitor, so expect it to be very expensive but also very luxurious and probably about as the best that Jeep has to offer and the best that FCA can do here, which is kind of cool. So interesting to see that teaser. Chevy has also shown a couple of teaser images here for the 2022 Bolt and the Bolt EUV. So they both look to be getting some Blazer-inspired styling, but the EUV is going to be the larger and higher crossover version of the Bolt. Same platform and stuff, just adapted to be a little more buyer-friendly with the crossover thing everyone loves. And then Chevy says that also the EUV version is going to be the first Chevy to have Cadillac's Super Cruise tech, and that the both cars are going to be going into production by the summer of 2021. So we'll be seeing that, probably, I'm guessing maybe, towards the end of this year, we'll see a full reveal, or they might wait until next spring or something. We'll have to wait and see. But anyway, interesting to see those teasers. And we have a few interesting rumors this week. Now, the first is, according to Autocar, Elon Musk this week said in a company conference call that we will not succeed in our mission if we don't make cars affordable. The thing that bugs me the most about where we are right now is that our cars are not affordable enough. We need to fix that. And then he goes on to say it would be reasonable to assume that we would make some type of compact vehicle of some kind, and probably a higher capacity vehicle of some kind. So the main thing everyone's focusing on is the compact thing. So apparently Musk is looking for a vehicle that competes with the Volkswagen ID.3, which starts around 35,000 euros. And the Model 3 in Germany starts around $47,000 or 47,000 euros. So the sketch that you're seeing here is from January, which is the last time that Tesla was kind of hinting at a small car. And they were talking about this in a Chinese recruitment ad for the company. And in that ad, they were just saying that they wanted to do a Chinese-style Tesla for cities. So they're talking about a small urban vehicle, and that would fit in very nicely with something that competes in Europe as well as a small urban vehicle. And so I'm guessing they would offer it here in the United States just since they're based in the States, and it would probably make sense to just make it a global car for everyone. But we'll have to wait and see if any of this materializes anytime soon. I think back in 2018 was the first time there was any kind of mention of a compact Tesla, and they said back then I think it would arrive within 5 years. So that puts us at a timetable of 2023. Now, if they just make it a shortened version of a Model 3 or something like that, they could rush something pretty quickly, I think, kind of like how they did with the Model Y. But, we'll have to wait and see. That'd be kind of interesting. They do have so many other things. They're still working on the Cybertruck. They're still working on the Semi, and, of course, the Roadster, if that ever comes. And so, yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But interesting to hear about the compact thing. I think that could be very cool and help more people to get into Teslas as well. And some other rumors here. Autocar is also reporting that Volkswagen has supposedly decided to keep the Passat alive. And for a while, we weren't sure if it was going to get discontinued, with Volkswagen doing all these ID models and, killing off everything that was recognizable within Volkswagen in the past. And so sounds like they're keeping the new Passat around. They say this is largely due to demand in China. So again, it all goes back to demand. If people are buying enough of something, they'll keep making it, whatever it is. And I'll come back to that in a few minutes here. But anyway, so this new Passat's going to be a global model that, according to their insider source, will focus on space and practicality, since the Arteon is going to be the more stylish car in the Volkswagen lineup. And so the Passat can then just be, boxier, just more focused on being practical, which makes sense. And they're saying it's going to be based on the MQB platform, which is actually the same platform that the current and much nicer European Passat is already based on. I'm not sure why we don't just get the European Passat everywhere. Maybe that's what they're planning on doing here with this Passat that they're bringing here. We'll have to see. But supposedly it's going to be a very, still new vehicle, even if it's on an older platform. There's rumors it's also going to get an electric version as well. And there's also rumors that the version that's coming to the United States here will be only electric, We'll have to wait and see about all that. I don't know how that would fit into their ID hierarchy, because I believe the ID6 or the ID5 was going to be a sedan. So if you have a larger sedan that's electric, and then you have the Passat, which is also electric, maybe the Passat should stick to a gas engine, since people buying the Passat probably are wanting to stick to a more old-fashioned style sedan, and anyone who wants something radical and new can go for the ID thing or whatever. But anyway, we'll have to wait and see. Autocar is saying it should arrive by 2023, so we'll have to wait and see if that happens. And there's also an engine that's going to continue to live on. And so according to Autocar, they got all the stories this week. Jaguar Land Rover will be continuing production of the awesome supercharged 5-liter V8 engine that's in the F-Type that I love dearly, as well as all the other top-end Jags and Land Rover models. And it just sounds so good. And so anyway, the engine was in danger of dying off since supposedly it's still built in a Ford factory in the UK. And this Ford factory builds engines for various companies. It's kind of more of a boutique engine factory. And so anyway, that plant is closing down next month. But JLR is going to the trouble of transferring the entire production equipment and even some of the employees to the JLR engine manufacturing facility. This factory is over 100 miles away it goes from like the west side of the UK over closer to the east side. And so that's pretty impressive that they're doing that. So they're saying the reason why they're going to all this trouble is because of strong demand in the United States and in the Middle East for that V8 engine. And that's why they're keeping it around. So it goes back to the thing that I say very often. I'm probably a broken record at this point, but if you want to keep something around, you have to buy it new and show them there's demand for it. And apparently, I thought Jaguar and Land Rover sales weren't great for the past year or two, but apparently the V8 stuff, the sales were good enough that it sent a clear signal to them that they need to basically transplant an entire factory 100 miles to continue keeping this engine around. I admire that dedication, and I hope that it rewards them well, and people continue to buy this engine in all its iterations. And so that's pretty exciting. They're keeping that around. They're saying, according to Autocar, that engine will live on for another 3 to 5 years, at which point the EU7 emissions regulations will be kicking in, forcing them to quit building it most likely. But again, if there's a will, there's a way. I'm guessing if it is something that only the US and the Middle East wants, they could even just do a little engine factory here in the States, or have another company like Magna Steyr or something build it for exclusively exporting it to those places. Because I believe this V8 engine, even though we're the biggest demand, us in the Middle East, I think they will still offer it in Europe and stuff. So maybe they'll just quit offering it and continue it after that point. But at that point, it's going to be getting kind of old. There's talks of how they have the partnership with BMW and will use their twin turbo V8s from the M5 and stuff in Jaguar products in the future. But I guess they're going to kind of put that off for a while. Especially, the engine's awesome, and it's an old engine that's been paid off. People that buy that engine don't care about fuel economy and stuff. I think this is the right move to keep it around. It's an awesome engine, and so cool to see that they're doing that. The last little story this week, unfortunately, something that isn't being kept around. Now, this isn't 100% confirmed, but according to a Ferrari dealership, Miller Motor Cars, they've claimed that they've just sold their last GTC4 Lusso, and they said that order books are closed on the GTC4 Lusso, and that it's not going to be built beyond this year, as far as who else is ordering them for the rest of the year here. But this was first reported by All Car News, and but there isn't any official confirmation from Ferrari yet, or anything like that, or even most other media outlets aren't even reporting on it yet. So we'll have to wait and see if this actually does indeed turn out to be true. It kind of makes sense. Miller Motor Cars is saying that Ferrari is suggesting the Purosangue SUV that's coming next year, that's going to fill the void, of course, of the GTC. And then, of course, if you do want something that's more of a Grand Tour, they're going to want you to go for the Roma, which is their new, comfortable Grand Tour. But that is still just a two-door coupe and doesn't have the practicality or the all-wheel drive of the GTC4 Lusso. I would be really sad if it actually is killed off, because that is actually, I think, my favorite Ferrari. I still love the convertible stuff like the 812 GTS and Superfast. Those are amazing. But just the insanity of an all-wheel drive V12 hatch with a Ferrari badge on it. It's just the most crazy combination. I don't know why more enthusiasts didn't buy them. Yes, they're super expensive, so it's not something that's easy to buy. But yeah, that's just such an awesome idea, and I think that's going to go down as being one of my favorite Ferraris. Yeah, and hopefully they'll continue to appreciate. Maybe someday I'll be able to afford one or something. We'll have to see. But anyway, yeah, that would be sad if it kind of goes away. It'd be the end of an era, because it started with the FF and will probably die off with the Lusso, because it sounds like the SUV is not going to have a V12, and the V12 in general is going to be going away here in the next few years. So kind of unfortunate, but anyway, the GTC4 Lusso had a great run, and it's an awesome car, and I'm just glad Ferrari made it at all. But yeah, so that's it for all the news this week, guys. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this weekly update. Let me know your thoughts on everything in the comments below. I hope you guys all continue to stay safe and healthy, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care.